Okay, I wasn't sure what shirt to wear for this video. Usually I don't put too much thought into it, just pick up whatever shirt I find. But when it comes to this book, well, F's are given for fashion. Hey, what's up, bookworms and Silver Saints? We are back today to talk a little Jay Kristoff. And today, guys, we're talking about book 2 in his epic vampire series. This is The Empire of the Damned. Book 2 in the series and the sequel to the very popular Empire of the Vampire. Now, book 1, guys, it really surprised me. I never expected to like it as much as I did. But due to the urging of a good friend, I did pick it up, and I've become quite a big Jay Kristoff fan. I've been anxiously awaiting this sequel. Now, Jay Kristoff himself did actually send me an advanced reader copy, because if you guys don't know, the one that was going around NetGalley was only the first 2 books, and this has 7 books on the inside. So thank you so much, Mr. Kristoff, for sending this to me early and letting me get a head start on reading this wonderful sequel. And there will be no spoilers for this book, guys. Don't worry. But I may have to talk about some things that happened in book 1. But before we get into it, guys, too much, let's go ahead and talk about what is this book about. Now, ℓ𝕬𝕣𝕠𝕠𝕜𝕤 has saved the Holy Grail from death, but his chance to end this endless night is lost. Drawn into an uneasy alliance with the mysterious vampire ℓ𝕬𝕤, Gabriel must now deliver the Grail to the ancients of the blood ℚ𝕤𝕤 and learn the truth of how his day's death might be finally undone. But the last Silver Saint faces peril within and without. Pursued by terrors of the Blood Voss, drawn into warfare between ℓ𝕬𝕑 and the Dust Dancers of the Frozen Highlands, and ravaged by his own rising bloodlust, Gabriel may not survive to see the Grail learn her truth. And that truth may be too awful for any to imagine, guys. This leads into Empire of the Damned by Jay Kristoff. And we get into the good and the bad as per usual here. Begin with the good, and there's quite a bit of it. First, I just have to thank Jay Kristoff for continuing to make vampire fiction accessible for middle-aged men again. Now look, this book is for everybody. All walks of life are going to enjoy this series, I do believe. But let's be honest, the vampire genre has been kind of hijacked by tween ladies. It really did for a long time. And I felt like what I loved so much about the first book was it did feel like adult epic vampires that were actually scary, that were vicious, that were killers, and they just weren't here to date you. Now, vampires can still be sexy. Don't get me wrong. Vampires are sexy. I just feel like there's more to them than, trying to woo teenage girls. I'm glad he continues to do that. But with this book, guys, the characters continue to evolve. I love the relationship between Gabriel and Dior. If I'm being honest, I'm not taking shots here, but I'm saying this is the relationship I kind of always wanted Geralt and Ciri to have on The Witcher, this kind of surrogate father-daughter relationship that they have. I love their banter back and forth. It really, truly, genuinely feels like these two have real emotions and care for one another. And, there is a real fine line between love and hate, and these two, it's very much on display, because as much as they do genuinely seem to care about each other, they will be quite honest with each other, and sometimes brutally honest, and sometimes in a overbearing kind of fatherly way. And those are things that come up more than once in this book, and I think it's done extremely well. It does have a little bit of that dad stuff in it that I say will get to me every once in a while. But next I got to talk about the audio performance, and more importantly, how you can get this one on me. And that brings us to the sponsor for today's video, guys, which is Audible. You might have heard of them, and I think the reason is most of my audience here, they do consume their stories via Audible, and Audible is a very widely known brand because it is your one-stop shop for consuming all of your favorite stories. And it isn't just audiobooks on Audible. It also includes podcasts and other Audible originals, and you can download as much as you want via the app or online. Now, I focus mostly on sci-fi and fantasy here, but it's got a whole lot of everything, including mysteries, thrillers, horror, you name it. But the best part is, guys, Audible is free for new members, up to and including new releases. So you can get this story right now for free with the trial. So the first was really lauded for just how thrilling of an audio performance it was by Damian Lynch. Well, he's joined at this time by Shakira Shute, because there is more than one point of view in this story. I don't think you're going to find a better deal around, guys, for a new release such as this. So make sure you hit the description for the link or text to the number right here on the screen and start your Audible free trial today. But I love not only the new, but also the expanded characters that have returned from book number 1. The new characters are really good, but some expanded roles for some of those side characters are actually, kind of elaborated upon in this one to great effect. And I really did grow to love all of them. And ℚ𝕦𝕦𝕤𝕦 is one I find a lot of fun, but you also kind of have this sense of dread the whole time about what's going to happen when he finds out about what Gabriel did at the end of book number 1, as he is obviously a Silver Saint, that Gabriel was one who actually kind of trained him, and he doesn't know the truth about what happened at the end of the book yet, because, guys, no cell phones. It's just the time where information wasn't getting around very fast, especially not in this world, so you kind of have that feeling of dread the whole time if ℚ𝕦𝕦𝕤𝕦 never figures these things out. Phoebe is an incredible character. I love all the Dusk Dancers in this. I think that is one of the coolest things in this series. Anytime you got the idea of something that can kind of be like a skin changer, can kind of change between a human and an animal, it's just really, really well done in this. And it is definitely the coolest little race that we have in this series, I think, so far. So to me, it's like, I got the Dusk Dancers, then I got the vampires. That's kind of how I feel about the power set in these books. But God, I just love Phoebe so much. That's a character that I really, by the end of this book, was one of my favorites, and I could not get enough of that character. I have to say, getting multiple viewpoints. Go back to my Empire the Vampire review, and I made my prediction and said, I wonder if in book 2 we get this from someone else's point of view. Well, you still get this from Gabriel's point of view, but you get another point of view, which I won't tell you who it is, but I love it because, guys, what is better than one unreliable narrator? 2 unreliable narrators. So it's up to the reader to kind of decipher which one of these characters is telling the truth, which one's embellishing a little bit, what actually happened at some of these events, especially when they start actually talking directly to one another and you're trying to figure out, okay, what actually happened here? So it's something that I felt like the first book played around so well with, like, okay, well, how much of this is actually factual and how much of this is Gabriel just kind of, making himself look a little better, doing a little bit of his kvothe here where he's just kind of making himself look a little better than he actually is. But I think with this, getting different sides of these events is a really, really cool effect, and I think it works. A criticism I heard of the first book was that it's too edgy. Now, I admitted in that thing, I said I don't even know what that means, but I think I understand where people are coming from, and I say this one feels less so like that. Now, I love the first book. I had a blast with the first book. This one seems a little more focused, a little more where there are higher stakes. Now, obviously, there was high stakes in the first one. I'm not going to talk about, when a character was losing beloved family members, say it didn't have high stakes. It did, but, Gabriel was a little more brash, and he was real loudmouth. Kind of like Ash from The Evil Dead or something like that, where he just kind of was basically he was smelling his own farts a little bit. He was kind of doing that occasionally. Don't feel like you get that with this one because you don't get recounting of the story in the same way, especially now that Dior is a big, big part of it. So I think that he's actually calmed down a little bit in that regard. So if that's something that was a criticism to you, I think you'll find out a little less in this, but I never found that a problem with book 1. I don't know, maybe I'm edgy or whatever, but I love that you get some good backstory for Gabriel's parentage, what happened to the ℂ𝕦𝕤𝕦, why she looks the way that she does. You get these kind of answers. It's just phenomenal stuff, and it just gives you enough. Or it doesn't give you everything, but it gives you enough to want to keep going and find out more. But I feel like I did get some very satisfying answers to some of those lingering questions that I did have from the first one. Is there a romance? Well, guys, I'll tell you, there's a romance that sprouts up in this book. It was completely unexpected, and it worked for me. It really did. It was one that I was kind of like, I didn't expect that, but by the end of the book, I was full on like, yes, I like this quite a bit. It was working really, really well for me. So you guys know that Jay Kristoff has been known to write a descriptive scene between two people copulating before. That doesn't change here. He still remains very good at it. So guys, for lack of a better phrase, if you were worried about this book not being as horny as the first one, I don't think you would need to worry on it. It doesn't reach like Nevernights levels. I never think it's going to get that far. But those things are here if you're looking for them. And Jay does continue to be, I've criticized so many fantasy authors, male fantasy authors, about stop doing this. You're not good at it. Jay's quite good. He's quite good at it. And that does continue here, as does his dialogue, guys. It is witty, it is sharp, it is hilarious. I can't think of another fantasy series where the dialogue makes me laugh this much in such a grim and cruel setting since The First Law. I feel like Jay Kristoff. Now, look, a lot of his is because he uses these just crazy, wild versions of cuss words and combinations that he uses, these modifiers for swear words that he does. That's still here. Don't worry. But it's one of those things where I never find it just like overdone to the point where that's why I'm laughing. Because look, I'll forever be 12. Bad language makes me laugh. I'm sorry, it just does. But with this, it's more than just that. Just the way the characters talk to each other. I'm grinning. I'm having a good time with them in those small moments when they're having good times together. But I am laughing at the dialogue quite a bit, but in the best way, and that I'm having fun. Not that it's like, no one would say that. No, it's really good stuff. But you will pick up a few, you will add a few swearing combinations to your vocabulary if you're anything like me. And I gotta say that the final conflict is pretty epic. It was something that was building up, and I was like, I don't know how I feel about this, but when it happens, it's pretty good. It is pretty dang good, and he just continues to get better and better at writing action, I think, because going back to Nevernight and to where he's at now, and I was like, this guy is really, he has evolved to the next level of his Pokemon stage. He is a really great action fantasy writer now, and I think that just some of the fights are just so cinematic, man. You're just going to be able to see it in your mind's eye so well. What doesn't really work for me now? I don't like to use the word bad. I know I call the section what makes it good or bad, but for me, I don't really feel like anything here is bad. I think there's some things that might not work for you, just like there's some things I struggled a little bit with. I'll be honest, I liked House Divok. I liked them a lot, but I wanted more of Voss. I felt like they set up Voss so well in that first book, and I was wanting so much more of that. And I felt like they were kind of almost just like a looming threat in the background this book. And I mean, that's fine. I'm glad that he's continuing to build his world. He's introducing new villains and things like that. That's good. That shows that Gabriel's taking it on all sides here. I get that. I just say I was missing Voss just a little bit, House Voss. I really wanted to see more of them. And the Divok, like I said, very cool, but there are quite a few of them, and I'll get into that here in a minute, but that was something that I felt like I wish I would have gotten more of Voss. Not all of the new characters worked for me. I'm not going to actually name any of them because I don't want to influence you that way, but we'll talk about this in spoilers or something later, and guys, and I can tell you about a couple characters that I wasn't really crazy about. It wasn't one of those things where like I wish they just leave. It's just, in a Jay Kristoff book, I usually like everything because he develops all those background characters so well, and he still might. We don't know how long this series is going to be. We don't know if it's going to be a trilogy. I'm going to ask him when I talk to him here soon. But the thing is I feel like he really usually develops a lot of these characters in a way that I slowly grow to like them. And I almost feel like he's challenging himself here, and I might be way off on this. I feel like he's challenging himself. I'm going to present some of these new characters, make them kind of unlikable, and then you're like, oh, gosh, I like this character now. I didn't expect that. Kind of in that George R. Martin way. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I don't like when Gabriel and Dior are not together. There are moments in this book where they have long times where they are not together. I love it when these two characters are together. I get it if this does end up being a trilogy and this is the middle book, this is that part where you do it, where you have your two groups kind of split off, and it works, and it also helps to these characters to build some agency on their own. What I don't like about it is that there will be long stretches of the book where there is no Gabriel or there is no Dior, and I don't like that. I like them together, and I'm fine with them spreading their wings and kind of getting bigger roles elsewhere, but it was kind of a bummer for me whenever they weren't together, and also when one of them would disappear from the story for quite a bit. Guys, if you don't like the bad language, it's still here. That's stuff that's going to change. So if that was something that drove you off of the first book, I'm afraid to tell you this one's not going to change very much for you. The bad language is still there. This is very much a very dirty, disgusting, raunchy world. It really is. And these characters are going to use some bad language. And I think that is something that Jay is never, ever going to shy away from. And I love it, but I'm just saying it might not work for you if it bothers you in the first one. And that's really all I have on things. And that's really nitpicking, guys, because I'll get into my final thoughts here. Is, Kristoff hasn't said this is going to be a trilogy, but it does very much feel like a middle book. And what I mean by that, like I said, splitting your cast into two groups, kind of building your world, introducing new villains and things like that, feels like something you would do, and you have your characters take a lot of losses. That way, you can kind of have the come around in the third book. But again, he hasn't committed to saying this is going to be a trilogy or not. I'm going to really press him on it when I talk to him here real soon. But most of the things I loved, I really did. I included the banter between Gabriel and Jean-Francois when he's actually telling the story is still so good. I mean, these two, there's one point where the character's like, can you two just screw already? And it is kind of like a weird angsty romance, like some bromance between these two. It actually really is. It's actually a lot of fun. I have a great time where they're just like insulting each other, and it's just, Gabriel's just so brash, and Jean-Francois is such a refined gentleman, but it's just like his insults are just like of a different type, like going up and slapping you across the face with his glove or something. He's that type. So he's very much like an aristocrat, where Gabriel's just very much in your face and tells you exactly what he's thinking. But I love that relationship a lot. So I think it's a great follow-up, and I did enjoy book one. I did think I liked book one a little more, like I said, because I felt like I was having a little bit more fun. This is a lot more serious. And I don't want people to think I'm saying that the first book wasn't serious, because it was. I just had a blast reading it because I guess it was edgy. I don't know. I'm still not quite certain what that means. I show my age a little bit on things like that. But I do think that, like, Gabriel was a little bit more braggadocious, I guess you would say, in the first book, whereas this one, he's just worried. He's worried about taking care of Dior, and he's worried about other things, I think, and that's just kind of changed the character a little bit, and that's called a character arc. I can appreciate that. But I would say those are some of the things I did like about the first book a lot. But there is no sophomore slump here. This is very, very good. It continues to build this world. I'm very excited for where he's going with it, and I will actually be hanging out with Jay on Friday in Dallas, Texas. I'm going to be going up to his book signing, and we're going to have a sit-down chat, just he and I, and I'm going to press him on how many books this series is going to be, and try to tell him, we can't be waiting 3 years between these books, sir. You've got to write faster. What are you doing on a book tour? Get back to work. But it should be a lot of fun, guys, and I cannot wait for book number 3 to see how the series potentially concludes or continues. So guys, Empire of the Damned, have you read it? What'd you think? Why don't you drop in the comments, guys, and let me know, and I will talk to you there.